What's good, everybody? It's your boy back with another reaction video. Why am I belching? I haven't even eaten anything. Well, I did drink like 4 cups of water, about 5 cups of water. Anyway, I'll be reacting to 3 disturbing real fall horror stories. Now, I saw this because this came up recently, recommended to me, and not last night, but I think 3 nights ago. It was foggy as hell outside. Like it was so foggy. Like it was that type of fog where it's hard to see even in front of you. Like it was even at night, which was interesting because normally at fogs at night, for some reason for me, I could usually see clearly through unless it's light. But like fogs during the day seem to be worse than at night. But this fog was like thick, and it was just. I went outside. I took my garbage out, and I was like, man, it was so thick. I was like, somebody, like, if I couldn't even see them, like until they got probably about maybe about 10 to 15 feet to me before I'd see them. And I was just like, normally you don't see it like around here, that type of thing falling, but I was like, huh. I saw when this came up. I was like, how am I reacting? Anyway, let's just get into this. All right, here we go. Stay out of fog.
A few years back, I was staying at my girlfriend's dad's house.
That's one of my favorite movies of fall.
It was situated between a large
Not
section
that-
of woods and a lake.
That
Her dad owned many
sequel
acres of
or
land,
remake
including much
bullshit.
of the nearby woods. He even
One
had
with
this
Tom
little,
Welling.
I don't want to say path, but very narrow clearing in the woods that I'd like to walk through to clear my head. It was this one unnaturally foggy day that I wanted to go for a walk in the woods. I put on my boots that I'd use for hiking and told my girlfriend I'd be back in a little while. She didn't like to walk in the woods, so I'd always do it alone. Walking into the narrow clearing
Like the
in the
fog
woods, I
actually
really
looks
took in how foggy
thicker
it
than
was
this.
that day. I couldn't see 15 feet in front of me. I hadn't seen it like that in years. In fact, I haven't seen it that foggy since. But as long as I'd stay in the clearing, I'd be able to find my way back. Walking through the clearing, I thought I could hear my footsteps being mirrored, as in synchronized with someone else's steps. So I stopped and listened. This was private property. Nobody should be here except for me. So I calmly called, "Hello?" When I didn't hear any calls back or footsteps, I felt it was safe to continue walking. The woods had a very eerie vibe with the thick clouds of fog floating through the trees. Crunches on the floor of the woods from my boots, and the sounds of evening crickets was just about
Like
all I
a
heard.
hello,
Calming vibe.
because you think you're secure because this is private property.
A moaning like breathing noise, like an old
Unless
man
you got a
moaning
gun.
in discomfort. This time I knew I wasn't alone. It sounded like someone was hurt. I walked towards the noise, concerned, once more calling out, "Hello?" I stopped when I sharpened my senses a little and noticed the figure of a person standing just far enough away in the fog in front of me where I could see their presence there, but that's just about it. Just a really tall figure in the fog. That was the person making the moaning sounds. I crept a little closer.
They wanted you to
asking
get
if the
closer
person
so
needed
they could,
assistance, but I didn't
fuck
exactly
you
get a
up.
better view. So I walked a little closer, and still, it didn't feel like I was getting any closer to the person. I yelled this time, and the moaning stopped. I took 2 more big steps this time towards the figure, and that's when I realized that no matter how much I walked forward, this person, this figure, didn't seem to get any closer. I turned around and started walking back through the clearing in the direction of my girlfriend's dad's house.
He's like, yeah, I think I'm just gonna leave
I
now.
looked over my shoulder about 5 seconds later and swallowed my gum, seeing that the figure now behind was still the exact same distance it had been this entire time.
Ooh, that's kind of
I
creepy.
started running, heart racing, running short on breath rather quickly. And every time I looked over my shoulder, I saw that figure hovering the same distance behind me. And I use the word hovering now because I eventually picked up on the fact that I couldn't see the outline of the lower part of the figure's legs. It just looked like this floating apparition in the fog. I eventually made it out of the woods back to the yard of the house. I took one last look at the tree line while it was still in sight through the fog, and I saw the person, figure, apparition, whatever I should call it, right by the tree line. I burst in through the back door of the house, slammed it shut out of breath, and when my girlfriend, her dad, and her brother came in response to my noise, I pointed out into the fog at the tree line, telling them someone or something was following me in the woods, no matter how fast I ran. Her dad put on his shoes and went outside with me real quick. I pointed to where I last saw the figure in the woods, and it was gone. He patted my shoulder and told me I had nothing to worry about. With he and I being two 6-foot dudes, and with the 2 dogs in the house, no one would be breaking in here. I laughed and pretended for a second as if I wasn't mentally scarred for life from what just happened. I'm not one to believe in ghosts or anything of that nature, but this was definitely the closest thing I've ever experienced. It still sends shivers up my spine to this day.
I don't know, because sometimes you be going through the fog and they be playing tricks on your eyes, too.
While in the process of moving from my parents' place in Staten Island to Manhattan, I was using a lot of apps like Craigslist and LetGo for new furniture. I had already gotten the apartment in Manhattan by the point of this story, but I was still spending most of my time in my parents' house while I was still finishing up furnishing the apartment. I was on the app LetGo, and I found a really cheap, nice-looking dresser that matched the rest of my furniture.
I've been on that app.
I messaged the guy whose name was Jake, and he was quick with his responses. We set up a time and place to meet that night, outside his house on some dead end by a little park. He said he worked late shifts, and his only available time to meet would be past 10 most
I can
nights.
only come at night.
That was fine
so
for me, though.
Meet you.
The meetup time was 10:30. I wanted to be a little early because honestly, the later it got, the sketchier things would feel. I got to his house at like 10:15 or maybe earlier, but it was an intensely foggy night. I couldn't even see if there were other cars parked in the street. Literally seconds after I parked at the dead end, I got a message from Jake on LetGo saying, "You're early. Just give me a second, I'll be right out." I thought, what in the world? How did he know I arrived that second? Was he watching from somewhere in the fog? Still, I replied, okay, and looked around even harder now. I realized there weren't really any houses on the street, at least not normal-looking houses. It was an unusually secluded street for Staten Island, with some small buildings that I couldn't even make out what they were for. Eventually, Jake sent me another message saying, "Come on out, the dresser's waiting out back." Out back where, though?
Yeah,
I couldn't see anything. I got out from my car while replying back to him, asking where I should
come
go.
to my,
That's
my
where the responses
backyard
on the app stopped.
with a privacy
The yells over
see.
here started. I followed the voice of this Jake person through the fog. I felt as if I were in some bizarre horror scenario. Following his voice, I'd occasionally shout, "I'm coming." I walked through this narrow alleyway-like thing between these 2 buildings. This wasn't a neighborhood street at all. I called out for Jake as I got through the alleyway to a backyard-type area. I didn't know if it was big or small.
Is Jake Dracula?
Mixed with the darkness, wouldn't let me see more than 6 feet in front of me. Jake was no longer calling out for me. It just went completely dead silent, except for the sound of distant nighttime traffic. I knew in my gut something wasn't right. I was about to make my way back out of there. "Wait, your dresser's just right inside here. Come inside." I heard his voice in front of me, but I could not see him. I didn't respond. I just started backing away towards the small alleyway. I turned around. I could see other people standing mere feet away from me. Even through the thick fog, I could see them just standing stiff up against some wall or fence. Something bad was going on here.
Are they about to fuck you up?
I began to sprint back through the way I came, and I saw and heard I was being chased by at least 3 different people.
Ooh.
I didn't run for my truck, as I wouldn't have time to get in, started, and do a 3-point turn. I ran down the road till I couldn't run anymore and got the police on the phone. 2 police cars pulled down the road eventually. One of them picked me up when I waved them down. We got to the location and we went to the little yard area. There weren't any people still back there. The 2 little buildings were both abandoned storefronts. The back door was wide open, but inside was literally nothing. Do I even need to say it? No dresser, obviously. I showed the officers
They
the
about
let go
to skin
conversation.
your
All I
ass.
had to do was give them the account that posted it, and that would allow them to open an investigation. But somehow nothing ever came of it. I'm not sure how thoroughly the police department even investigated this. All I know is something very, very bad was going to happen to me if I went in that building.
Oh yeah, you gonna get fucked up. You gonna be foobarred.
Last Saturday, while I'm writing this, it was an insanely foggy day. My family and I are
I wonder what they
quarantined
would
in
have
Jersey.
done if there was no fog.
My wife was out shopping, and my son was in his room. I was trying to get work done on my computer in my office room when my 6-year-old daughter Veronica came inside, saying she saw someone in the garden. I left the office to the window looking in the backyard where the garden is. And indeed, she was right. There was someone standing over my garden. Their back was to us, but they didn't appear to be doing anything. And I know it sounds unbelievable, but I really couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman. That's how foggy it was. I knocked on the glass to try and scare them away. I saw them turn their head, then walk over my garden deeper into the fog until we couldn't see them anymore. I told Veronica to wait inside while I slipped on my shoes and walked out into the fog real quick.
Why would you
The
do
person only walked deeper into my property. See, we live in what I guess kids call bumblefuck, so I have a large yard. Obviously, seeing someone on this yard is unsettling, and my natural reaction was to follow in the direction I saw the person walk. I started to
That was
hear a
your
rhythmic
natural
thumping
reaction.
noise, and as I got closer to my shed, I realized it was coming from there. The shed came into view when I got close enough, and I saw the person at the door of it, apparently slamming the door shut over and over again.
Oh,
I yelled, "Get out of here," before I called the police.
person crazy.
I stepped closer and got a better look at the person. It was some middle-aged woman. She looked disheveled. She said sorry at least 10 times as she literally ran away from me in the direction of the road, quickly disappearing in the fog. Later that night, after my wife and I turned off the TV and tried to get to sleep, the dead silence in the room revealed a sound coming from outside. It was coming from the backyard, and I recognized it as the slamming of the shed door again. I felt sick realizing this. My wife was shaking me, telling me to go out there and chase whoever it was off.
Well, you go out there.
I didn't tell her about the woman because I didn't want to scare her. I slipped on my shoes, grabbed a flashlight,
Shit.
and turned on every backyard light on the house. I went outside immediately yelling, trying to sound intimidating. The slamming stopped. It was still foggy out. I had to walk a little bit to be able to see the shed. The shed door was open. The woman wasn't anywhere in sight. I have to admit, I was downright terrified to go into the pitch black shed at that moment.
You have a flashlight?
Figured she had to be in there. But this is what you do as the man of the house. In my best words,
That's what you
I
do.
charged into the shed screaming.
Idiot.
Once again, some
Idiot of the
intimidation
house.
factor. But the shed didn't have anyone in it except me. So I shut the door and twisted the little lock on the handle. I yelled some threat about calling the police really, really loud, and then went back into the house.
You gonna say call the police?
Turned off all the backyard lights.
They in the house.
As I was walking back to my bedroom, Veronica came up to me crying. "What's wrong?" I asked her. She replied, "Look out my window." Those words hit me hard. I ran to her room, keeping the light off, and saw that woman standing at her window trying to open it. I got a clear view of the woman now, and her face was nothing short of horrific. She had droopy, cracked skin, her hair was wiry and grayish. She looked like her teeth were probably effed up too. There was clearly something wrong with this woman.
Effed
I
up.
had to assume she was
Gotta keep it
dangerous.
YouTube friendly again.
I screamed at her to leave us alone, and then went for the phone to call 911. The woman ran off for good this time. The cops couldn't really do anything except alert other officers over the radio. It's been less than a week, and yesterday my shed door was left open again from some point in the night.
This
I'm really
chick.
getting freaked out for my family. I fear one of these nights I'll wake up and she'll be inside the house.
Standing over you with a big fluffy dildo. Talking about something. Supper time. that last was actually kind of scary to me. Like, well, I mean, if you keep everything locked and stuff, I mean, unless this woman can pick a lock, I mean, it should be. But then if you have a deadbolt, shouldn't be any problem. Also, you can do that thing. I used to do this when I was in a dorm room. I had a door stop. Wait, the room, it came with a door stop. I would put it when I closed my door, even though that door had a deadbolt. Uh, Sometimes I wouldn't lock it, or I forget to lock it. I would just put that like door stop behind the door, so if someone tried to open it, they couldn't open it. Because I remember one time somebody, I don't know, they were coming to do a room inspection, but they got my key instead of they got next to me. And I was sitting in my room, I was sitting on my bed, I was laying on my bed, watching TV, and all of a sudden I heard my door was like I heard the door unlock, and like I was like what the fuck? What the fuck is that? Because oh, I'm sorry, it didn't have a deadbolt. It had a lock at the bottom, which was like a hotel door. Like if it closed, it locked automatically. I can't tell you how many times I locked myself out of my room, but it had one of those locks on the top. You know, they like little metal locks where they have that little ball on it, so you open it, it catches, kind of like a chain, but you know the metal ones you see in hotel rooms, it had like that thing on it. But like I said, I also had that door stop, and I was just hammered in it, and they couldn't open the door. So, but yeah, you get this dude. That last one, that would be because he's like, I charged him and screamed. I was like, this is what you do with a man in the house. You do dumb shit like, ah! And then you'd have ran right into a damn knife, running in the dark shit like that. Like, you would like, why would you do that? You don't have a gun? Did you have a weapon at least? Like, he didn't say he picked up anything. I ain't hear it. But like, you have a gun, a bat, knife, a sword, like brass knuckles. Like you had nothing. You just running there screaming, "I'm gonna call the police!" Like this person probably don't care. Because I mean, they heard you coming. They would already ran. They were scared of police, and you calling the police. Like I'm gonna run there screaming. Oh, you like my wife told me again. I was like, you when we both go out here, you watch my back. You know, just in case something happens. That way, you can at least run inside and call the police. You know, like if something happens, it's like I go out there, you just up, and you in the room, still in bed. Like, what? And so if something does happen to me, you won't even know the damn door is open. Well, I don't know if he closed the door behind him and locked it or not, but it's just that he closed the door and didn't lock it. This person just the person they kill me or injure me, knock me out, whatever. And they just come in and you didn't even watch my back. So stupid people. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed my reaction. If you did, make sure to hit that thumbs up button down below. Make sure to subscribe into it, hit that bell and be notified when I upload new videos. Comment down below, share this video. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.